So in the previous class we started with this topic, that is magnetism and matter. So initially we discussed about the introduction part of this chapter. We saw what is a magnet and what is magnetism. So I told you a magnet is a material that has both attractive and directive properties. Okay, we discussed what are those properties also. So any material which has attractive and directive property is called a magnet. Okay, it has the ability to attract small pieces like iron, nickel and cobalt. This is also we discussed. And the property of attraction that magnet has, okay, is called magnetism. So whenever a magnet is freely suspended, okay, so what does it do? It will point towards a geographical north-south direction. Why this happens is because of the Earth's magnetism, which we will be studying in the next section. Then we saw there are some natural magnets, artificial magnets. Okay, some of the materials can be converted into magnets, and those are called as the artificial magnets, because natural magnets are not strong. They are not magnetically strong enough for certain application. That's why we require artificial magnets. Okay, so pieces of iron and other magnetic materials can be made to acquire the properties of natural magnets. You can artificially make them magnets, okay, and such magnets are called as the artificial magnets. Okay, next we saw certain basic properties of magnets. Under that, the first property we saw was attractive property, wherein supposing you take a magnet, on top of the magnet you place let's say a glass sheet, and on that glass sheet supposing you sprinkle the iron filings, what will happen? The magnet is going to attract all those pieces of iron. It might be cobalt also, it might be nickel also. Okay, so when a magnet is brought near a hip of a iron filing, supposing you have a hip of a iron filing and you take a magnet close to it, what will happen? The ends of the magnet will show the greatest attraction. Most of the iron filings are going to get attracted towards the ends of the magnet. Okay, and what are these ends called? These ends are called as the poles. Okay, the two ends of the magnets are called as the poles. Okay, so these ends where the magnetic attraction is maximum are called as the poles of the magnet. Okay, they are called as the poles of the magnet. So this property was attractive property. The second property that we discussed was the directive property. What does directive property tell us? So when a magnet is suspended, okay, when a magnet, supposing we have a bar magnet like this, okay, and this bar magnet is being suspended, okay, it aligns itself along the geographical north-south direction. So it will automatically come, a torque will act on it and it will automatically arrange itself in the north-south direction. Okay, the pole of the magnet which points towards the geographical north, supposing this is the geographical north, so the pole which points towards the geographical north will be called as the north pole of the magnet, and the pole which points towards the geographical south, let's say this is the geographical south, is called as the south pole of the magnet. So this was the second property. The third property was that like poles are going to repel and the unlike poles are going to attract. Okay, so if a north pole of a magnet is brought near the north pole of another magnet, what will happen? They are going to repel each other. Supposing north pole of one magnet is brought near the south pole of the other magnet, it is going to attract each other. This is the third property. Okay, fourth property was that the magnetic poles always exist in pair. That is, monopole is not known to exist. Okay, so if we try to isolate the two poles of the magnet from each other, supposing I have a magnet and I try to cut this magnet into half, okay, the two pieces you see over here is going to individually behave like a magnet. They are going to individually behave like a magnet, having weaker magnetic properties. So magnetic monopole does not exist. This was the fourth property. And the last property was magnetic induction. That is, a magnet induces a magnetism in the magnetic substance placed near it. And this phenomena is called as the magnetic induction. Okay, supposing you have a magnet and this magnet is inducing the magnetic properties, okay, in particular material. That material is called as the magnetic material. Okay, it induces magnetic properties in a magnetic material. The process is called as the magnetic induction. So when north pole of a powerful magnet, okay, is placed very close to the soft iron bar, okay, and the closer end of the bar becomes the south pole. Okay, so supposing you take a piece of soft iron and a very strong north pole you keep near this soft iron piece, okay, then the nearer pole, the nearer part of this soft iron will become the south pole, okay, and the farther one will become the north pole. Okay, so basically as a result the magnet attracts this iron bar. This is obviously north and south pole, they are unlike poles, so this soft iron will be attracted towards the strong magnet which you have kept. Okay, so basically this is the phenomena which is called as the magnetic induction. Next we are going to look at some important definitions which are connected with magnetism. Okay, some of the important definitions we need to know to understand the process of magnetism. Fine, so the first definition obviously is magnetic field. We need to understand what is magnetic field, and the definition of magnetic field we have already learnt in chapter 4, moving charges and magnetism, correct? So what is magnetic field? A space around a magnet or a current carrying conductor or a moving charge, correct, is a magnetic field. Okay, and what is the speciality of this magnetic field? Its influence can be experienced, okay, by a moving charge. If you place a moving charge in the magnetic field, it will experience a force. So basically its influence can be felt. This region is called as the magnetic field. The second term which we need to understand over here is, what do you mean by uniform magnetic field? Now we have already discussed what is uniform electric field. We have already discussed what is uniform magnetic field also to some extent. But still, what is uniform magnetic field? A magnetic field in a region is said to be uniform if it has the same magnitude and direction at every point in that particular region. So supposing if I say this particular region has a uniform magnetic field, what does that mean? That every point in this particular region is going to have the magnetic field in the same direction, and that magnetic field is going to have the same magnitude. The value, the magnitude of that magnetic field is going to be same. Okay, another small thing is how to represent the 3D magnetic field. The field which is coming towards you is represented by dots, correct, and the field which is going inside the plane is represented by crosses. This also we had discussed in chapter number 4. The next definition you need to know over here is magnetic poles. What do you understand by magnetic poles? I just now told you. Okay, so basically magnetic poles are the region, okay, of apparently concentrated magnetic strength, okay, in a magnet. So supposing I have a bar magnet. Supposing I have a bar magnet, what are the poles of the magnet? It is the region where the magnetic strength is concentrated. So you see that at the ends of the bar magnet, the magnetic strength is concentrated. So this will be called as the poles, poles of that bar magnet. So I'll repeat, the regions of apparently concentrated magnetic strength, a region in which magnetic strength is concentrated of a magnet, okay, where the magnetic attraction is going to be maximum. So supposing you sprinkle the iron filings, the maximum iron filings would come in this region like this here. Okay, so that particular region is called as the magnetic pole. Okay, the poles of the magnet are going to lie somewhat inside the magnet. Okay, they are not exactly. Supposing this is a bar magnet. Let's say this is the bar magnet. So basically, it doesn't mean that this surface is the pole. Okay, the pole is going to lie somewhere inside the magnet. Okay, the poles of the magnet are going to lie somewhat inside the magnet and not on its geometrical ends. It is not exact geometrical ends. It's somewhere inside. Okay, so maybe iron filings would start accumulating over here like this, not exactly on this surface. So this is magnetic poles. The next The next definition we need to know over here is what is magnetic axis. What is magnetic axis? So basically, like we had axis of a dipole, same way it is. Okay, we can consider bar magnet also as a dipole because it has two poles, north pole and south pole, correct? So what will be the axis of a dipole, axis of a magnetic pole, that is a bar magnet? The line passing through the poles of the magnet will be the axis. Okay, so supposing I have a magnet, this is its north pole, this is its south pole. Okay, here I'll mark them. So the line passing through both the poles, okay, of a magnet is called as the magnetic axis of a magnet. And what do you think is the magnetic equator? Magnetic equator. What do you think is the magnetic equator? Supposing we have a line which is passing through the center of the magnet at right angle to the axis. So if I draw a line which is passing through the center of the magnet, which is made perpendicular to the axis of the magnet, that particular line will be magnetic equator, same as that of the electric dipole equator. Okay, next is magnetic length. Next is magnetic length. Okay, so basically dipole length, what was the dipole length? There was a positive charge, there was a negative charge which was separated by a distance, and the distance of 2L was called as the dipole length. Similarly, it's a magnetic length. So the distance between the two poles of the magnet is going to be the magnetic length, that is distance from here to here, which is eventually we'll be considering it as 2L only. We'll see it in the next section, but that is called as the distance between the two poles of the magnet is called as the magnetic length. Now will it be same as the geometric length of the magnet? No. Okay, geometric length will be this full length. This is going to be geometric length from here to here, from end to end. But the pole length, or basically the magnetic length, is going to lie from one pole to the other. So basically we can say that magnetic length is slightly lesser than the geometric length of a magnet. Okay, so these are some of the definitions, some of the important definitions which are connected with magnetism, which we need to know. Okay, so the next topic we have is Coulomb's law of magnetic force. Okay, so we have already learned Coulomb's law for electric charges, or Coulomb's law in electrostatics. Supposing we had two charges, Q1 and Q2, which was separated by a distance of r. We know that they put a force of or the electric force, which we call it force of attraction or force of repulsion, on each other, and that force was given by the Coulomb's law as F is equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 upon r square. So this is what we learned in electrostatics. But if we talk about Coulomb's law of magnetic force, if we consider the two poles of the magnet as the charges, if we consider the two poles of the magnets as the charges, which is also called as the pole strengths, and then we treat them as the charges and continue, then what do we get? That is basically the Coulomb's law of magnetic force. So the concept is completely same as electrostatics. Here we had pair of two charges, here we are going to have two pole strengths. Okay, so supposing I have two pole strengths, supposing this is my bar magnet. Okay, supposing I have pole strength as QM1. Okay, that is magnetic charge, we call it. Magnetic suffix M stands for magnetic. Q is a charge. So magnetic charge and magnetic charge 2. So these are called as pole strengths. QM1 and QM2 are the pole strengths. Okay, so if QM1 and QM2 are the pole strengths of the two magnetic poles, let's say this is a north pole, this is a south pole, by dipole, correct, no? So if QM1 and QM2 are the pole strengths, pole strength is basically what? How strong your pole is, that is pole strength, okay? So if QM1 and QM2 are the pole strengths of the two magnetic poles which are at a distance of r apart, let's say that the distance of separation between them is r, then the force between them, the magnetic force between them, is directly proportional to the product of this pole strength, and it is inversely proportional to the square of distance between this pole strength. So this is basically your Coulomb's law of magnetic force. Exact same, okay? So what will be equal to? We put a proportionality constant Qm1 Qm2 upon r square, where K is what? K is the proportionality constant, okay? And on what proportionality constant depends upon? It depends upon the nature of medium, usual nature of medium, okay, depends on, it is going to depend on the nature of medium as well as the system of units chosen. It's a constant, right? So it will depend upon system of units chosen. Okay, so for SI units, and vacuum, for SI unit, we put for SI unit and poles placed in vacuum. Supposing this entire system is placed in vacuum, okay, then what will be this K? In electrostatics, what was K? Electrostatic, K was 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught. In magnetism, what is our K? We have been using it. It is mu naught upon 4 pi. Qm1 into Qm2 upon r square is going to be your magnetic force. Where mu naught is what? We very well know what is mu naught. Mu naught is called as the permeability. It is called as the permeability of free space. It is called permeability of free space, and the value is equal to 4 pi into 10 raised to minus 7. Okay, it's called Henry per meter. Okay, this is SI unit. So what would be the statement of the Coulomb's law of magnetic force? So the statement is going to be, this law states that the force of attraction or repulsion, if you see this statement over here, I'll mark this for you. Okay, so if you see this red box, okay, what do you see over here? So it will state that the force of attraction F, that is force of attraction or repulsion between the two magnetic poles, is directly proportional to the product of their pole strength, that is Qm1 and Qm2, and is inversely proportional to the square of distance between them. I'll repeat, the Coulomb's law of magnetic force states that the force of attraction or repulsion between two magnetic poles is directly proportional to the product of their pole strength and is inversely proportional to the square of distance between the two poles. This is what the statement of Coulomb's law of magnetic force is. Okay, so the next topic is magnetic dipole and magnetic dipole moment. Okay. So in electrostatics, or in third chapter, that is electricity, right? Electric current. Okay. The fundamental or the simplest structure that we saw, which was existing, which was the source of everything, was the electric charge. Correct? No, we had electric charge, and that was the source of everything. Electric field lines, electric field, electric flux, Gauss law, and then current electricity, entire of current electricity was based on a point charge. So here in electrostatics, if we had 2 point charges equal and opposite in sign, if one was positive, one was negative, having the same magnitude, and they were separated by a particular distance, we called it as an electric dipole. So in electrostatics, I'll just compare the two, okay? In electrostatics, the source was electric charge, and when we combine the two charges, a plus q and a minus q, equal and opposite, which was separated by a distance of 2l, we got an electric dipole. And here we saw one more term which was associated, called electric dipole moment, which was pointing from negative charge to a positive charge. So it was electric dipole moment, which was given by the product of the charge into the distance of separation between them. Okay, and the direction was from negative charge to a positive charge. It was a vector quantity. In magnetism, the isolated magnetic poles does not exist. Correct? No, like how we had an individual pole over here. This was the individual pole, was the source. But in magnetism, if we consider magnetism, okay, we know that the isolated magnetic pole, which is called as the monopole, okay, does not exist. So here the simple structure that can exist is a magnetic dipole. There won't be any pole over here. So the simplest structure that is going to exist is magnetic dipole. Okay, like we had in electric dipole, electrostatics. Okay, and this magnetic dipole is going to have a magnetic dipole moment also. Okay, so if you remember, when we were doing the torque experienced by a current carrying loop placed in a uniform magnetic field, we introduced the magnetic dipole moment. Okay, so the magnetic dipole moment was given by I into A, if you remember. And you know, the current flowing multiplied by the area of cross section of the loop gave us the magnetic dipole moment. Okay, we saw it there, correct? No, and we also said that basically the current carrying loop behaved like a magnetic dipole. We made a statement over there that the current carrying loop also behaves like a magnetic dipole. Okay, so that only we are going to relate over here and study the next part. Okay, so basically what exactly is a magnetic dipole? If we look a bar magnet, if we consider a bar magnet and look at it as a magnetic dipole, how do we define a magnetic dipole? So basically an arrangement of two equal and opposite magnetic poles. Now here, there we had equal and opposite charges, a positive charge and a negative charge. Here what do we have? We have equal and opposite poles. So arrangement of an equal and opposite magnetic poles separated by a small distance will be called as the magnetic dipole. Okay, so this arrangement will be called as a magnetic dipole. So can we call every bar magnet as a magnetic dipole? Yes, we can call every bar magnet as a magnetic dipole. So we got another magnetic dipole. We already had a current carrying coil or a solenoid, correct? No, as a magnetic dipole. So basically we got a bar magnet as a magnetic dipole. Solenoid or a current carrying loop. This we already had studied. Correct? No, this part and this part in the previous chapter. Now we also know that bar magnet can be considered as a magnetic dipole because it is nothing but the arrangement of equal and opposite poles separated by a particular distance. Okay. Current carrying loop also behaves like a magnetic dipole. A solenoid is nothing but a current carrying loop having n turns. So that also is going to behave like a magnetic dipole. Okay. So now let us define what is a magnetic dipole moment. So magnetic dipole moment will be what? Electric dipole moment was charge multiplied by the distance of separation. So magnetic dipole moment will be nothing but the product of pole strength. Okay. So magnetic dipole moment is given by M. We represent it as M. Okay. So it is going to be the pole strength, that is Qm, magnetic charge. Again hypothetical, imaginary. Okay. So the magnetic charge, that is the pole strength of a magnet, multiplied by the distance of separation. Again let us take it as 2L only. Standard for electricity also, for magnetism also. The distance of separation between the two poles is going to be 2L. So it is going to be a displacement vector, because both the side we has to have a vector, otherwise it will be not a proper equation. So M is going to be Qm multiplied by 2L, where Qm is what? Qm is the pole strength. Qm is the pole strength. The unit of this Qm is given as ampere meter. Okay, we will discuss about this. Just keep an idea that the pole strength's SI unit is ampere meter. We will discuss it later. Okay, in the further part. And obviously the displacement will be given in meters. Okay, so 2L will be given in meters. So SI unit will be ampere meter square. Okay, so 2L's SI is the length of separation. Between the poles, which is given in meters. So what will be the SI unit of M? The SI unit of M is going to be ampere meter square. And isn't it the same as I into A? Because the current is given in ampere and area was given in meters. So if you consider the current carrying coil as a dipole, you get the same magnetic moment, dipole moment. Even if you consider a bar magnet as a dipole, you get the same magnetic dipole moment in ampere per meter square. Okay. Now direction of the magnetic dipole. Okay. So now it's simple. See, there was a positive charge, there was a negative charge. The magnetic dipole moment was going, the electric dipole moment was going from negative charge to positive charge. Now we have a bar magnet, wherein the positive charge corresponds to the positive of the magnetic strength or a pole strength, and negative charge to the negative of the pole strength. Okay. So basically this is going to be a north pole, this is going to be a south pole. So your magnetic dipole moment is again going to go from negative to positive, that is from south pole to north pole. So remember it this way. Okay. So north pole is going to represent to the positive of the pole strength, and the south pole is going to represent negative of the pole strength. And since your electric dipole moment was going from negative charge to positive charge, the same logic has to be applied over here. So your magnetic dipole moment is going to go from south pole to the north pole. Okay, and as discussed, the SI unit is going to be ampere meter square, or it is also joules per Tesla. Okay, it can also be written as joules per Tesla also. So this is basically your magnetic dipole and magnetic dipole moment. The next topic is magnetic field lines. So again let us start comparing it with the electric field lines. So what were electric field lines? It was nothing but a path along which a unit positive charge would move, okay, or would tend to move if it is free to do so. Right, no? And if you have an electric field line curve, a tangent to that electric field line curve, okay, would give you the direction of electric field at that point. So if we had a positive charge and a negative charge, we saw that the electric field lines initiated from a positive charge and end over a negative charge. And at supposing I consider a single point, and at this point I want to find out the electric field, the net electric field, because of these two charges. Okay, I have to just simply draw a tangent to this curve, and this tangent to the curve gave me the electric field, the direction of electric field to be precise. The same logic is with magnetic field lines. So what is with magnetic field lines? What is the definition of magnetic field lines? So magnetic field line is a curve. Okay, obviously they are curved. Okay, so magnetic field lines are curved. The tangent to which, if you draw a tangent to this curve, what would it point to? This tangent would point to the direction of magnetic field at that particular point. So if I have a bar magnet, there is a north pole and there is a south pole, then the magnetic field line would emerge out from the north pole and they would come inside the south pole. The direction of magnetic field lines would be from north pole to south pole. It will come out from north pole and end at south pole. And if I take a single point on this curve, and if I want to find out the magnetic field at this point P, let's say, then what I have to do is simply draw a tangent, and this tangent is going to give you the magnetic field which is produced by this bar magnet at this point P. Okay, the direction of magnetic field will be known at that particular point. Another definition of magnetic field lines is the path along which a unit north pole would tend to move if it is free to do so. So it is not obviously possible. You cannot have north pole, just the north pole alone. Okay, so in case you have a north pole placed over here, it would automatically travel along this path. That path is called as the magnetic field line. So this becomes the definition of magnetic field lines. Again, magnetic field lines as electric field lines are just imaginary lines. You cannot see them. Okay, it is the path which is imaginary and you are not able to see them. Magnetic field lines are also called as magnetic lines of force. Like how electric field lines were called as electric lines of force, magnetic field lines can also be called as magnetic lines of force. It is an alternative name, okay, for magnetic field lines. So magnetic lines of force do not really exist but are quite useful in describing many different magnetic phenomena, like in case of electrostatics. Okay, same way. Okay, so now let us move on to the properties of magnetic field lines. Let us look at few properties of magnetic field lines. Okay, so the first property is the magnetic lines of force are closed curves which start from the north pole and end at the south pole, and then they are going to return back from the south pole to the north pole through the magnet. So basically remember, the magnetic field lines, okay, are continuous curves. What did we know about the electric field lines? The electric field lines or the electric lines of force were not continuous. They used to start at positive charge, end at negative charge, or start at positive charge, end at infinity, or start at infinity and end at negative charge. Their source or sink was a charge. But in case of a magnetic field lines, they are going to be continuous. That means what? Supposing a magnetic field lines is emerging out from a north pole and then it is going back into the south pole. This line is going to continue straight through the magnet. Okay? And through the magnet it is going to travel from south pole to the north pole. Okay? So basically that is the first property. Magnetic lines of force are closed curves. They are closed curves. That is basically they are starting at north pole, ending at south pole, and then return to the north pole through the magnet. Inside the magnet, they are going to return to the north pole. The second property is that, the same as electric field lines, the two magnetic field lines cannot cross each other. The magnetic field lines will never crosses. They are not going to cross each other. What would happen if they cross? If they cross, that would mean that there are two directions of magnetic field. Supposing the two field lines are crossing. So basically at this point, this will be and this will be going to be the two directions of magnetic field, which is not possible. That is why we say that magnetic field lines are not going to cross each other. So this is the second property. The third property is that they start and end on the surface of the magnet normally. They are going to start from the surface of the magnet normally and they are going to end from the surface of the magnet normally. They won't be at the angles. Okay, so this is the third property. So just mention they start and end. Okay, normal to surface of magnet. Okay. Fourth property is that the lines of force have a tendency to contract lengthwise and expand sideways. Okay, this will explain you the attraction between the unlike poles and the repulsion between the like poles. What does this property mean? Supposing you take a north pole and north pole was here, or let's take a south pole. Unlike poles we'll take first. There was a south pole. Okay, so basically the field lines would be going like this. Correct. The field lines will be coming out perpendicular, and they would be emerging from here and ending over here. So what do we know? North and south pole would attract. North and south pole would attract. So basically they are going to come closer to each other. But what is the second property that we have studied? The two magnetic field lines cannot cross each other. So what is going to happen in this case? What is going to happen in this case? They are going to get compressed like this. They are going to get compressed, but they are not going to cross each other. So the field lines are going to get compressed like this. Okay, so the magnetic field lines can compress lengthwise, and in case of repulsion they are going to expand sideways. Okay, so this is the fourth property. And the fifth property is that the relative closeness of the lines of force gives us the measure of the strength of magnetic field, which is maximum at the poles. So supposing if you consider the magnet having a north pole and a south pole, okay, so you will see that the intensity of the field lines over here, okay, will be more. The intensity of the field lines over here is going to be more. They are not going to cross. Okay, I'm just showing you the intensity. Okay, so basically the intensity at the poles will be more. So more number of lines, or rather more number of lines passing through a unit cross sectional area we can consider, or closeness of the lines you can consider. Both can define the strength of the magnetic field. Supposing more number of lines are crossing per unit area, or maybe the closeness is really small. They are very, very close. The field lines are very, very close to each other. That space is going to have a stronger magnetic field. If the lines of force are spaced apart, that particular region is going to have a weaker magnetic field. So that is the difference, and this is the fourth point. Okay, so this the fifth point. So these are the 5 properties of lines of force or magnetic field lines. Yeah, I'll just give you an idea. This will require later, but let us clear it now itself so that it becomes easy for you. Supposing I have a magnet. This is my north pole, this is my south pole. As I told you, the magnetic field lines is going to come from north pole and end at the south pole. It is going to come from the north pole and end at the south pole. Now supposing I take a magnetic needle. I hope everybody knows a magnetic needle. What is a magnetic needle? Correct, no? So basically magnetic needle looks something like this. Okay, one of the side of this magnetic needle is made dark, it is made black or red. Okay, so that side is north pole. Okay, and the other side is south pole. Always remember this. The one which is darkened, it might be darkened with black or red. Okay, the one which is darkened is always in the printed textbook, it will be darkened with black. Okay, so basically the darkened one is the north pole always, and the other one is the south pole. So if I take this compass needle, okay, which is basically a small metal piece which is cut into this shape, and pivoted, correct? No, I hope you all have seen those keychains which has magnetic needle. Okay, so supposing you take this magnetic needle and place it over this magnetic field line. Okay, and place it over this magnetic field line. How will it place itself? So now this is going to behave like a magnet. The magnetic needle is going to behave like a magnet. So through this magnet, how the field line should pass? The field line should pass from south pole to north pole through the magnet. So how this needle is going to arrange itself? The needle is going to arrange itself like this. So basically, this is going to be your north pole. And that is going to be your south pole. On the other side, this is going to be your south pole. Okay, so your magnetic needle is going to point like this. So this is north, this is south. Okay, supposing you place it over here. You place it over here. How it is going to point? It is going to point like this. This is going to be north, this is going to be south. If you place it over here, it is going to point like this. This is going to be south, this is going to be north, because the magnetic field line has to pass from south to north inside the magnet. So this is how your magnetic needle is going to point. So this you will understand better, or this you will require when we do Earth's magnetism. Okay, yes, let's move on. Okay, so the next topic we have is the magnetic field of a bar magnet at an axial point and an equatorial point. Okay, so this particular topic for this particular year, okay, is reduced. So this entire derivation is removed. So basically, what was the derivation? We had a bar magnet. Okay, we had the axis of the bar magnet. Okay, and we have an equator of the bar magnet. We took a point on the axis of the bar magnet and we found out the magnetic field on the axis of the bar magnet. We took a point on the equatorial. We took an equatorial point for a bar magnet and we found out the equatorial magnetic field for this particular bar magnet. That's it. Okay, so basically here you are going to get the same relation which we got for a current carrying coil, because current carrying coil is nothing but a magnetic dipole, correct? No, so we got B axis for a current carrying coil. If you remember, there was a current carrying coil. We considered IDL as a current element over here. We took this distance as R, the radius was taken as A, this distance was taken as X, correct? No, and we got the equation, correct? We got an equation there for B axis, and then we derived the other one for B equatorial also. Okay, but same thing we used to do with the bar magnet, but now this year it is not there. So we are going to take up the expressions directly. Even the expressions are not there. Okay, even the problems won't be asked, but just to understand it, I'll just give you the expressions. Okay, so B axial is going to be for bar magnet. Okay, so you can consider this for a bar magnet, you can consider this for a solenoid, you can consider this for a current carrying coil, because all three are nothing but magnetic dipole. All three can be considered as magnetic dipole. Okay, so B axial would be mu naught upon 4 pi 2 into m upon r cube. So if you remember your expression, okay, it is going to be like this. Okay, this is going to be the expression you get. And B equatorial point, the magnetic field is given as mu naught upon 4 pi. This 2 will go. Okay, it is going to be m upon r cube. This is completely same to your electrostatics. In electrostatics we had a dipole and we found out the electric field for an axis of a dipole and electric field at a equatorial plane of a dipole, at a point on the equatorial plane of a dipole. And if you remember, it was 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught 2p. That is, the magnetic dipole moment is replaced by electric dipole moment upon r cube. Rest everything remains same, and 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught p upon r cube. This was the expression which we saw in electrostatics for an electric dipole. But now here your constants would change. Permittivity would change to permeability. Even the 4 pi is remaining same. Only thing is your permittivity will change to permeability, and your electric dipole moment would change to the magnetic dipole moment. That's it. Okay. Rest of the expressions are going to remain same. Nothing else is going to change over here. Basically, the next topic which we have is torque on a magnetic dipole in a magnetic field, which is again reduced from the portion. This also we do not have. Okay, so basically what we had learned in the previous chapter, that is moving charges and magnetism, we had a north pole and we had a south pole, and there was a current carrying coil which was placed. There was a current carrying coil which was placed of any shape. Okay, basically, okay, we considered a rectangular coil in that case, and we saw that the torque over here acting on this coil was NIAB sine of theta, or it was also given in the vector form as M cross B. The same expression you are going to get if you place a bar magnet. If you place a bar magnet in a uniform magnetic field, I'll just show you, I'll just give an idea to you. What is it? Supposing this is my uniform magnetic field, and in this uniform magnetic field, if I place a bar magnet, okay, let's take the strength as QM, okay, and QM and minus QM, okay, the forces acting on it will be like this and like this, same as electric dipole. So QM into B are the two equal and opposite forces. The magnetic dipole moment is pointing from negative QM to positive QM. The distance between them is taken as 2L. Okay, and then same way, torque is equal to force into perpendicular distance. So complete this triangle and get the perpendicular distance between them, that is from here to here, and then find out the torque. So here also the torque would come as MB sine of theta. We do not have this derivation, no need to learn this derivation, only the final expression. So tau is equal to MB sine of theta. So in vector form, tau will be equal to M cross B. This is the final expression which we get from here. Same as the current carrying coil placed in a uniform magnetic field. What will be the direction of torque? The direction of the torque is given by right hand screw rule. So supposing you have, I'll draw the figure and show you. So basically this is your magnetic field. Okay, this is your torque. So take your right hand, curl your fingers from first vector to second vector. Sorry, this is your M. This is your M. So curl your fingers from the first vector to second vector. You will see that the thumb points downwards. So this is going to be the direction of torque, which is M cross B. Right hand screw rule can be applied because it's a cross product, right? So you can use a right hand thumb rule to find out the cross product. That is going to be your direction. So basically what is important over here is the concept. Okay, so what do you understand from this torque? So supposing in place of this bar magnet, this bar magnet, you just freely suspend a compass needle, because compass needle is also a dipole. It is artificial magnet, right? Compass needle is an artificial magnet. So compass needle can also be considered as a dipole. So if you suspend that compass needle in air, in space, obviously there is magnetic field due to our earth. Earth's magnetic field is everywhere. So what is going to happen is, when you suspend this compass needle in the air, due to Earth's magnetism, due to the magnetic field generated by our Earth, what is going to happen? A torque is going to act on that magnetic needle, and that is why that magnetic needle is going to turn in the north-south direction. Now do you get why the magnetic needle would point in the north-south direction? Simply because that magnetic needle is nothing but a magnet, and once you suspend this magnet in a magnetic field, the magnetic field due to Earth can be considered uniform. If you suspend this particular magnet or this particular compass needle in this particular magnetic field, what is going to happen? A torque is going to act on this compass needle because it is behaving like a dipole which is placed in a magnetic field. A torque is going to act on this needle, and that is why it points in the north-south direction. It attains a stable equilibrium. That means the magnetic dipole moment is going to point in the direction of magnetic field. So supposing this is our Earth, okay, this is north pole, this is south pole. So this is magnetic field line which is going from north to south. Okay, so basically you place a needle over here. So this needle is going to point how? This needle is going to point like this, north and south. Why it is pointing like this? Supposing the needle was placed like this, it would still point like this. Why? Because a torque is going to act. A torque is going to act and it is going to align itself in the stable equilibrium. That means what? At this point, how is the magnetic field? See, the magnetic field is going like this. And how is the dipole moment over here? The dipole moment is going to be in the same direction. So the north south would be like this. I just change this, okay? Let me draw a bigger needle. The magnetic field line has to cross from south to north, correct? Inside the magnet, it has to go from south to north. So magnetic dipole moment is going to be like this, and magnetic field also is going to be in the same direction. So this is going to be your stable equilibrium. A torque is going to act on that magnetic needle, and that magnetic needle is going to attain a stable equilibrium. We have already discussed what is a stable equilibrium in chapter 4. That means when your magnetic dipole moment comes in the direction of magnetic field, it is a stable equilibrium. That means the torque is 0 at that point, correct? No? So basically a torque is going to act on this compass needle, and compass needle is going to rotate in such a manner that it attains a stable equilibrium. That is, the angle between the magnetic dipole moment and the magnetic field becomes 0. So we'll stop here for today. Okay. In the next class, we are going to learn potential energy of a magnetic dipole in magnetic field, and then we'll see the current loop as a magnetic dipole. Okay. Again, we'll do little bit comparison between electrostatics and magnetism, and then we'll again move on to the Gauss law of magnetism. Okay. And final part or the final topic of this chapter will be Earth's magnetism. Okay. So let us see that in the next class.